Hi guys, welcome back to another video. Today's video will be sort of like in two parts, but in one video, where the first part is I will show you around what I've built, and the second part will be me explaining what it was like, what it's trying to show. So let's get straight into it. So first thing is like a cart with horses from another village trying to bring like sort of supplies. You've got a church with like the pillars and the pews and the altar. And then we've got a farm with a farmer. It's got like crops and livestock. Then we've got the blacksmith with a set of armor that's ready, a furnace, a smithing table, I think it's called, and an anvil. Over here we've got the fishmongers with a fishmonger. And there's fish hanging outside. Then we've got the peasant houses with like straw bed and like, a bit of coal for tip. And then we've got sort of the execution place where we've got the area where like someone will be tied up and then burnt to death. And then we've also got the area where people will be tied onto a chair and they'll be dunked in the water. Then over here we've got the castle. The castle is included with a dining room with like a master's chair and a load of other chairs and food. We have the storage area with lots of chests. Usually filled with goods. Here we've got the kitchen, the toilet, and the bathroom. If we go down here, we have the servant quarters and the prison, or whatever you guys call it. In here we've got the armory with lots of armor, swords, crossbows, bows, and axes, all ready to be used. Up here we've got the like, this is the training area. This would usually be outside, but this is just an empty area, and I thought, well, might as well use it for something. So we've got two nice people like sort of like getting ready for battle. We've got two people trying to find out what's wrong with their bows, two people trying to train to use axes, three people training to use bows. If we go upstairs again, we have the king's bedroom with all fancy stuff, and we've got two sort of like guest bedrooms. One sort of like, well, one's like that, one's like that. They're virtually identical, but they're for like important guests. If we go downstairs and straight out the door, we have like up here we have 3 TNT launchers, but in olden days, which is meant to be like, you should probably get out of there. But as this is meant to be sort of like olden times, they would have been catapults, and they are fully functional. Because it would basically be sort of like the TNT is the arm that chucks it, and then the TNT exploding is basically what the rock would be. Over here we've got another like village or kingdom or whatever trying to attack this one, and we've got 9 towers, all of them with like skeletons in there because they'd have been archers. And we've got a forest because I thought that'd be a nice touch. This part is showing the purpose of all this, sort of like to show it historically. So the first part is this. Back in the medieval age, you'd have like sort of like different kingdoms, and certain ones would try and make alliances with others, and they'd sort of give like a peace offering. And so this guy's giving them some hay to see if they'll accept it. Over here's the church. You used to have it so that lots of people were religious, and so would use churches a lot. The next is the farm. Back then they didn't have fast food places like McDonald's and KFC, so they had to make their own food, such as wheat, beetroots, carrots, and other stuff. And then they'd also have livestock to eat. Next is fishmongers. Some towns had them, some towns didn't. It was usually the towns on like near the coast would have them, because if you're inland and you don't have any freezers or anything, the fish is just going to go off really quickly. And then you got the peasant huts, because lots of people didn't really have much money back then, and so they had like a bit of coal, straw beds. That was all they really had. Over here you've got sort of like the place where they'd like burn people who were being really naughty, who've done something that was really not okay. And then you've got like the dunking stool as well. The next thing is the blacksmiths. They'd usually have these for making armor and other stuff. Next is the castle. They usually had a castle in a kingdom, although there were a few villages that didn't have them. Next is the dining hall. Usually castles would have these. The king would sit at the like most important chair, and then you'd have people sitting at the others. You got the storage room. That was usually used for just like storing their stuff. Not like swords or anything, but more like jewellery that they'd got. The next is the armory. That was mainly used by the army. So like, they'd suit themselves up, grab their weapon. Swords, crossbows, bows, and axes were usually used back then. And then they'd go off into battle. The toilet has been made. Oh, actually, yeah. The kitchen. You got the bread cooking because they didn't have an oven. You got like cake and bread. They usually have like cake, bread, fish, meat, that sort of stuff. They wouldn't have like burgers and pizzas and stuff. And in fact, pizza wasn't made for like quite a few 100 years later, and it wasn't even made in England. It was made in France. No, not France, Italy. Then you've got the toilet. They didn't have proper toilets. They just had holes dug in the ground. So, yeah, and then I've added a sink. I'm not actually sure if they had them or not, but I couldn't really like put water in the ground as well because that would just go everywhere. Then you've got the bathroom. Usually the master would like sit in the bath, and then the servant would just pour water in from the cauldron there. Down here you have the servants' quarters because they had to live sort of like in sort of like an area with a load of others. They usually have straw beds, but I gave them normal ones. And then you've got the dungeon where bad people would go. Like sort of like invaders or someone from like a different place, they'd go there. If we go upstairs, as I said earlier, I know this area would usually be outside, but I've added this inside. But they'd usually have a training area for people using like bows and axes and swords, so they could train to know what they were doing. Then upstairs, usually this wasn't always upstairs, but you'd have the king's bedroom, which would be all very like fancy and would usually probably cost a lot of money. And then you've got sort of like 2 guest bedrooms. They weren't like the fanciest, but they did have carpets and other stuff. And then we just go outside. the first thing I'll talk to you about is the TNT cannons. They weren't actually TNT cannons like back in medieval ages, but they were catapults. The only reason I did TNT cannons instead is they sort of worked in the same way, as in you set it off, it would like be pulled back, and then that exploding would be it. The thing holding the rock or whatever it was would be released, and it would chuck it in a direction. And then over here you've got some invaders, and you'd usually see these when like another town or kingdom wanted to take over another one, and they'd usually attack the town. And then the forest here was just for decoration, but sometimes when you see pictures of them, you'll sort of see like a castle, and then you sort of see like a forest behind it. And I thought that would be quite a nice addition. And that's what all of this is for.